I never thought I'd be searching through my parents' office in the middle of the night, but desperation makes you do strange things. The dim light from my phone barely lit up the piles of papers as I hunted for my college acceptance letter. Mom had misplaced it earlier after I told her I needed their financial info for my student aid application. My name is Madison. Until tonight, I've been the perfect daughter, quiet, obedient, and nearly invisible next to my golden boy's brother, Gregory. The drawer squeaked as I opened it, and I froze. Down the hall, my parents' steady snoring continued. I let out a quiet breath and kept searching. Then I saw it, a thick envelope with my grandparents' return address, postmarked 4 months ago. That was odd. I hadn't gotten anything from them recently. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and some legal-looking papers. The first line made my stomach drop. Dearest Madison, we want you to know about the education fund we've set up for you. Education fund? What education fund? I kept reading, my vision blurring as I processed the details. $50,000, specifically for my college education. The letter was dated months before I got my college acceptance, back when I was still trying to convince my parents that university was worth it. We know your dreams are bigger than the small-town life your parents imagined for you, my grandmother had written. This money is yours to use, no strings attached. The documents listed everything, account numbers, transfer details, signatures. But I'd never seen a cent of it. My parents had gotten this months ago and said nothing. A floorboard creaked behind me. What are you doing in here? I spun around to see my mom, wearing her silk robe, arms crossed. The letter crinkled in my grip. When were you going to tell me about this? I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. She glanced at the paper, and for a moment, something flashed across her face. Guilt, maybe. It disappeared so quickly, I wasn't sure I'd seen it. That money is being put to better use, she said, reaching for the letter. You gave my college fund to Gregory? The words came out like shards of glass. Keep your voice down, she hissed. This is what's best for the family. Gregory has real potential, and I don't. Don't be dramatic, Madison. You can take classes at the community college, like we discussed. I stared at her, stunned. Gregory needs this investment, she continued, for his future. For his engagement to Kelly. You understand that, don't you? I looked at my mom, really looked at her. Her hair was perfectly styled, even at midnight. She stood like someone always ready for a photo in the local paper. Everything in her world had to be flawless, and somehow I'd never fit into that picture. No, I said quietly. I don't understand at all. I folded the letter and slipped it into my pocket before she could snatch it. I'm calling Grandma and Grandpa in the morning. You will do no such thing, she snapped, her voice sharp and cold. This is a family matter, and it's been decided. You're right about one thing, I said, walking past her toward the door. It is a family matter. And Grandma and Grandpa are family too. Madison Bailey, if you walk out that door. I didn't hear the rest. I was already halfway down the hall, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and something else. Maybe freedom. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother clearly. And with that clarity came a decision. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. Grandma's guest room felt more like home after just 5 days than my old bedroom ever had. Morning sunlight streamed through lace curtains as I unpacked my clothes, trying to ignore the dozen missed calls from my mom. The sound of clinking china pulled me downstairs, where Grandma was setting out her fancy tea set. She looked up and gave me that knowing smile. Your mother's coming over, she said, placing a third teacup on the tray. Thought we might need the good cups for this one. My stomach tightened. How did she find out I was here? Small town sweetheart, Grandma said. Diane from the grocery store saw you helping your grandfather yesterday. Your mother wasn't happy to hear about it from her instead of us, of course. Heaven forbid the town gossip got ahead of my mom's version of the story. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. Grandma gave my hand a squeeze before going to answer it. I stayed in the kitchen, hearing my mom's practiced laugh and the sharp click of her heels on the hardwood floor. When she walked in, she was wearing her charity board smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes. Madison, she said, like we were meeting at a fancy luncheon. This little tantrum has gone on long enough. Don't you think? Abigail, Grandma said, her voice firm with warning. That's not why we're here. You're right, Mother, my mom said, sitting stiffly at the table. We're here because my daughter is being unreasonable about family obligations. Unreasonable? I let out a bitter laugh. You stole my college fund and gave it to Gregory. How is that reasonable? We didn't steal anything, she said, stirring her tea with perfect precision. We redistributed family resources where they would do the most good. Your brother's business venture will benefit everyone. The connections he's making through Kelly's family alone. I cut her off. You took my future and handed it to Gregory on a silver platter. Don't talk to me about family obligations. I don't care about connections, I said, my teacup clattering as I set it down too hard. I care about my future. The one you decided wasn't worth investing in. The community college has perfectly adequate programs, Mom said sharply. That's enough. Grandma cut in, her voice firm as she turned to Mom. Abigail, do you remember when you were 17? When you wanted to study art in London? Mom's hand froze mid-motion. That was different. Was it? Grandma asked gently. Because I remember a young woman with dreams bigger than this town, crying for days when her father said no. You swore you'd never do that to your own children. I grew up, Mom snapped. I learned what really matters. Like what? I asked quietly. Security? Living someone else's life. Her glare could have frozen the sun. You have no idea what sacrifice means, what it takes to maintain a family's position in society. Your father and I have worked too hard to let you throw everything away on some foolish dream of independence. The only foolish thing here, Grandma said calmly, is thinking you can control your children's lives forever. Mom stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You've both made up your minds, clearly. But remember this, Madison. Actions have consequences. If you insist on this path, don't expect any support from your father or me. You mean like the support you've already shown by stealing my college fund? I asked. Her expression faltered, just for a second. There was something there, regret, maybe? Or fear. But it disappeared quickly, replaced by her usual icy mask. I'll see myself out, she said, turning toward the door. She paused but didn't look back. Your brother's engagement dinner is Tuesday. The whole town will be there. It would look better if you attended. After she left, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Grandma put an arm around my shoulders. Well, she said, that went about as well as expected. I don't understand her, I whispered. How can she just? Your mother lost herself a long time ago, trying to be what everyone else wanted, Grandma said, gathering the untouched teacups. The question is, are you ready to fight for who you want to be? I thought about the engagement dinner, the fake smiles, the whole town watching. I thought about Gregory, who probably had no idea what our parents had done. Yes, I said. I think I am. The country club ballroom sparkled with champagne flutes and 4 smiles. I adjusted my thrift store dress, feeling like an outsider among all the designer labels and pearl necklaces. Gregory's engagement dinner was exactly the kind of event my mother lived for, shiny on the surface, with everything carefully calculated beneath. Madison. Gregory's voice cut through the hum of chatter. He worked his way through the crowd with Kelly at his side. You came, he said, pulling me into a hug. Wouldn't miss it, I lied, hugging him back. Up close, I noticed the dark circles under his eyes, barely hidden. Kelly reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. I'm so glad you're here. Gregory's been worried sick since you left home. I was about to respond when Mom appeared beside us, her perfect smile firmly in place. Darling, the Walshes want to discuss the wedding venue, she said sweetly, then turned to me, her tone dropping several degrees. Madison, your father needs a word. Dad was waiting by the bar, holding what was definitely not his first scotch of the night. His shoulders were stiff under his expensive suit. The prodigal daughter returns, he muttered, not even looking at me. Dad, I said cautiously. Your mother tells me you're being difficult about the wedding arrangements. I blinked, confused. What arrangements? Don't play dumb, Madison. The loan paperwork needs your signature. The Walshes are contributing a lot, but we need to match their investment to keep up appearances. What loan paperwork? I asked. He finally turned to face me, annoyance written all over his face. The papers we talked about last week. To use your trust fund as collateral. Your mother said. She explained everything. The room seemed to tilt slightly. My trust fund? The one Grandma and Grandpa set up for my education? The one you and Mom already gave to Gregory? Dad's expression hardened. Keep your voice down. This isn't the place. When is the place? My voice trembled. When you forged my signature. When you stole even more of my future. Everything we do is for this family's future, he hissed. Your brother's marriage to Kelly will secure our position. Your position, I shot back. Not mine. A bitter laugh escaped me, loud enough to draw glances from the nearby guests. You know what's funny? I came tonight hoping there was something left worth saving. But you're still trying to take what little I have. You're being dramatic, Dad muttered. Is everything all right? Gregory appeared beside us, frowning. Perfect timing, I said, turning to him. Did you know about my trust fund? The one funding your new business? His confusion seemed real. What trust fund? The education fund from Grandma and Grandpa, I explained. Mom and Dad gave it to you months ago for your business. And now they want me to take out a loan for your wedding. Gregory paled. He turned to Dad. What is she talking about? Not now, Dad snapped. This isn't the time or place. When is the time? I demanded, louder now. Heads turned to watch. Mom appeared again, panic breaking through her perfect mask. Madison, you're making a scene? No, Mother. I'm finally speaking up. I turned to the gathering crowd. You want to talk about family obligations? Let's talk about how you stole my college fund. How you're trying to force me into debt for a wedding I can't afford. How everything in this family revolves around keeping up appearances while you tear us apart. That's enough. Dad growled, grabbing my arm. Let her go, Gregory said, stepping between us. The room went silent. Mom's carefully constructed world cracked, her composure slipping as whispers spread through the crowd. I'm done, I said quietly, pulling free. Done being the family's sacrifice. Done watching you destroy everything real in the name of appearances. I turned to Gregory. I'm sorry. I love you. But I can't be part of this anymore. Then, without another word, I walked out. I heard Kelly's voice behind me. Gregory, did you know about this? His reply was soft but clear. No, but I'm going to find out. Outside in the cool night air, my hands shook as I texted Grandma to come pick me up. The perfect image my parents had built was finally cracking, and through that crack, I saw something unexpected. Not just anger or a desire for revenge, but the chance for the truth to come out, even if it broke us in the process. At 2 a.m., my phone lit up with an email from Sterling and Associates. I'd been checking obsessively ever since submitting my internship application last week. Now that it was here, my finger hovered over the notification, unsure. An hour later, Grandpa Patrick found me on the back porch, still staring at the unopened email. Can't sleep? He asked, sitting down next to me and handing me a mug of cocoa. They offer me the internship, I said softly. His face lit up with pride. That's wonderful news. It's in Las Vegas. He understood right away. Las Vegas meant leaving. Leaving the town, the drama, and the heavy expectations my family had placed on me. It meant choosing myself for the first time. My phone buzzed. Gregory's name flashed on the screen. You should answer it, Grandpa said, squeezing my shoulder as he stood. Some bridges are worth keeping, even if others need to burn. I waited until he went inside before picking up. Hey, stranger, Gregory said, his voice soft and careful. Got a minute? Sure. I've been doing some digging since the engagement dinner, he said after a pause. There's more, Madison. More than just your trust fund. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? Mom and Dad, he began, they've been using Grandma and Grandpa's money for years. Country club memberships, their social circle, even my private school tuition, it all came from the Sterling Family Trust. They've been living off credit and appearances. The cocoa suddenly tasted bitter. How did you find out? Kelly's father is a financial advisor. He's been helping me understand the business venture Dad wants me to take over, Gregory said, his voice cracking slightly. It's all smoke and mirrors, Madison. They're drowning in debt, and they're trying to use my marriage to Kelly to save themselves. Pieces of the puzzle snapped into place. Mom's obsession with status, Dad's drinking, their need to control everything around them. Does Kelly know? I asked. Yes, he said, sounding exhausted. She's been incredible, actually. She wants me to walk away from all of it. Start fresh. Are you going to? A long pause. I don't know. But there's something else you need to know. Mom's planning to contest Grandma and Grandpa's trust. What? I asked, the world tilting. She can't do that. She already has, Gregory said quietly. She's filed the paperwork, claiming they're mentally unfit to manage their finances. My free hand curled into a fist. When's the hearing? Next week, he said. Madison, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it sooner. The unopened email on my phone seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Las Vegas suddenly felt like both a way to escape and a betrayal of the people I cared about. What are you going to do? I asked Gregory. I don't know, he said again. But whatever happens, I want you to know I'm on your side this time. Really on your side. After we hung up, I finally opened the email. The internship offer was everything I dreamed of, a prestigious firm, great pay, and a chance at a permanent position after graduation. It was my way out. But then I thought of Grandma and Grandpa. They'd taken me in when I had nowhere to go, supported my dreams, and helped me rebuild my confidence. And now my mom was trying to destroy them, too. I took a deep breath and started typing a response. Thank you for the incredible opportunity. I need to request a delayed start date of 2 weeks. The sun was rising when Grandma found me still sitting on the porch. One look at my face, and she knew something was wrong. What is it, sweetheart? She asked. We need to talk, I said, standing up. All of us. And then we need to call a lawyer. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. I'll put on some coffee. This sounds like a conversation that needs caffeine. As she turned to go back inside, I caught her arm. Grandma, thank you. For everything. She smiled, but her eyes were sad. Family protects family, dear. The real kind of family, not the kind that just looks good in pictures. I glanced at my phone again, at the email from Sterling and Associates and Gregory's messages. Sometimes choosing yourself means choosing who to fight for. And sometimes revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting free. The courthouse steps seemed endless as I climbed them, the lawyer Joyce by my side. My mother's accusations against Grandma and Grandpa, claiming they were mentally unfit to manage their own finances, had already spread through town. Just like she'd planned, people were picking sides. Remember, Joyce said, adjusting her briefcase, let me do the talking. Your mother's lawyer will try to get an emotional reaction out of you. Inside the courtroom, Mom sat with her hair perfectly styled and her designer suit immaculate, as if she were attending a charity gala instead of trying to strip her own parents of their independence. Dad slouched next to her, already showing signs of a hangover. Across the room, Grandma and Grandpa walked in, holding hands, their quiet dignity making my throat tighten. All rise, the bailiff called. The hearing began. Mom's lawyer wasted no time painting a picture of confusion and poor decision-making, claiming that Grandma and Grandpa were no longer capable of managing their finances. He presented bank records with large withdrawals, my college fund, but conveniently left out the part where my parents had redirected the money to Gregory's business. Then came the personal attacks. We have multiple witnesses, the lawyer said smugly, who can testify to Madison Bailey manipulating her grandparents, taking advantage of their declining faculties for her own financial gain. My fists clenched under the table. Joyce touched my arm lightly, a silent warning to stay calm. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, it is clear that, he continued, Mrs. Bailey has provided evidence that her daughter has a history of emotional instability and poor decision-making. A manila envelope appeared in his hands. Inside were printed text messages, private conversations between Gregory and me about our parents' financial schemes. Messages I thought were safe. Mom's face stayed perfectly composed, but I noticed the slight curve of her lips. She'd been monitoring our phones all along. The The judge reviewed the documents as my stomach churned. Then, he asked the question that changed everything. Where is Gregory Bailey? These messages suggest his testimony is relevant. My son is unavailable, Your Honor, Mom said smoothly. He's focused on his upcoming wedding and new business venture. The courthouse doors swung open. Actually, Gregory's voice rang out. I'm right here. He walked in with Kelly by his side, both dressed sharply. For the first time, Mom's mask cracked as her golden child approached the bench. Your Honor, Gregory said, his voice steady, I have documentation proving my parents have been draining my grandparents' accounts for years. They've used the money to maintain their social status while piling up massive debt. Mom's lawyer jumped to his feet. Objection. This is irrelevant to the competency hearing. I'll allow it, the judge said, taking the papers Gregory handed him. I glanced at Mom. Her carefully constructed world was falling apart, and her eyes darted between Gregory and me, desperately searching for control. Gregory, she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. Sweetheart, you don't understand the complexity of this. I understand perfectly, Gregory said, cutting her off. I understand how you manipulated all of us. How you're trying to declare your own parents incompetent to cover up your financial fraud. And how you've been spying on us, using our private conversations against us. The judge cleared his throat. Mrs. Bailey, these allegations are serious. If proven, they could lead to criminal charges. Mom stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. Everything I've done has been for this family, to maintain our position and respect. No, I said, finally finding my voice. It was for your position, your respect. And you were willing to destroy everyone else to keep it. She turned to me, her eyes blazing. You ungrateful little. That's enough, the judge interrupted. Based on the evidence presented, I am dismissing the competency petition. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full investigation into the financial allegations. He looked at my parents. Mrs. Bailey, Mr. Bailey, I suggest you retain criminal defense counsel. As security officers approached my parents, Mom's mask completely shattered. You'll regret this, she hissed, glaring at me. Both of you will regret choosing them over family. No, Mother, Gregory said quietly. We're choosing real family over appearances. There's a difference. Standing between Gregory and our grandparents, I watched as my parents were led to separate police cars. The fight was over, but the victory felt hollow. It tasted more like ashes than justice. You okay? Gregory asked softly. I glanced at my phone. The email about my internship, still unanswered, waited for my decision. We'll be fine, I said, though my voice was shaky. We all will. Sometimes winning means losing everything you thought you needed, only to realize what really matters was there all along. The bail hearing was set for Sunday, but Mom managed to get out early. Money has a way of bending the rules, even when you're under investigation for fraud. I shouldn't have been surprised to find her waiting in Grandma's kitchen on Friday morning, perfectly put together in her Chanel suit. We need to discuss the wedding, she said, as if nothing had happened. Grandma stood protectively beside me. Abigail, you shouldn't be here. It's my son's wedding, Mom replied smoothly. Of course I should be here. I'm not the one getting married, I said, confused. Mom's smile sharpened.
No, dear.
Gregory's wedding. Though I suppose you wouldn't know the details, since you've been so busy destroying our family. She pulled a thick folder from her bag and placed it on the table. These are the loan documents you signed last year. The ones funding the wedding, the venue, the catering, everything. I never signed anything, I said, frowning. Really? She said, spreading out several papers. My signature was on every one of them. My blood ran cold as I stared at the documents. The signatures looked perfect, exactly like my handwriting. When did you? You left so many permission slips lying around when you were in school, she said casually. It was easy enough to practice. Grandma grabbed the phone. I'm calling Joyce. Go ahead, Mom said calmly. But keep in mind, a fraud investigation will delay the wedding. Kelly's family will pull their support, and Gregory will lose everything he's worked for. Is that what you want, Madison? To ruin your brother's happiness, too? My hands shook as I flipped through the papers. The loans total hundreds of thousands of dollars, all in my name. You're bluffing, I said, but my voice wavered. Am I? She replied, straightening her jacket. The Walsh family values reputation above all. A hint of scandal, and they'll pull Kelly out faster than you can say family shame. Just ask your father. He's already drinking himself to sleep over what you've done to us. What I've done? The words caught in my throat. You're the one who what? She interrupted, her tone icy. Protected this family? Maintained our position? Everything I did was for you and your brother. And this is how you repay me? For the first time, her voice cracked, showing real emotion. You have until tomorrow to drop the fraud allegations. If you don't, I'll submit these documents to the bank. After she left, I sank into a chair, the weight of her threat pressing on my chest. We'll fight this, Grandma said firmly. Joyce will know what to do. My phone buzzed. A text from Gregory. Just heard from Mom. Is it true about the loans? Another buzz. Kelly's parents are asking questions. They're talking about postponing everything. A third text. Madison, please. I can't lose this too. I stared at the loan documents, my forged signature copied again and again. Mom had planned everything perfectly. It was her word against mine, with Gregory's happiness hanging in the balance. Madison, Grandma said gently, touching my shoulder. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about Gregory, I said quietly. How he stood up for me in court. How he's finally happy with Kelly. This isn't your responsibility, Grandma said firmly. Isn't it? I asked, looking up at her. The weight of every decision pressed down on me. Mom's right about one thing. The Walshes will run at the first sign of scandal. Gregory will lose Kelly, his future, everything. And what about your future? Grandma demanded. Your internship? Your dreams? I touched the loan papers, tracing the lines of my forged signature. Maybe some dreams cost too much. My phone buzzed again. It was the internship coordinator, asking for my final decision. The blinking cursor on my screen seemed to taunt me. Whatever I chose, something important would be lost. Sometimes the hardest choices aren't between right and wrong, but between two sacrifices. And sometimes revenge just isn't worth the collateral damage. I picked up my phone and started typing, knowing that whatever I decided, things would never be the same. The church bells were ringing by the time I pulled into the parking lot. Guests in designer suits and summer dresses flowed through the wooden doors. I stayed in my car, staring at the manila envelope on the passenger seat. Inside was everything Joyce had gathered. Years of forged signatures, fake accounts, and financial lies. It was enough to take Mom down and ruin Gregory's wedding in the process. I grabbed the envelope and headed for the side entrance of the church. The bridal suite door was slightly open, voices drifting out. I can't reach the bank until Wednesday, Mom was saying. Everything's arranged, Gregory. Just trust me. Like I trusted you about Madison's college fund? Gregory's voice was tense. I froze outside the door. Your sister made her choices, Mom replied smoothly. But today is about you and Kelly. Don't let Madison's drama ruin this too. Drama? Gregory's voice cracked. You forged her signature, Mom. You put her in debt for my wedding without even telling me. I did what was necessary. No. Kelly's voice cut in, sharp and clear. You did what was easy. Using Madison to fix your mistakes was easy. Lying to everyone was easy. I pushed the door open. Mom stood there in her perfectly tailored dress, her expression unreadable. Gregory and Kelly, both in their wedding outfits, were facing her. Madison, Mom said, her smile thin and cold. I thought we had an understanding about today. We do, I said, holding up the envelope. I'm here to make things right. By destroying your brother's wedding, she scoffed. How selfless of you. Actually, I said, turning to Gregory, I'm here to save it. I pulled out the real bank documents, the ones showing all of Mom's years of fraud. These prove everything. The forged signatures, the stolen money. All of it. Mom's calm mask slipped just a little. Madison, think about what you're doing. I have, I said, handing the papers to Gregory. But there's something else you need to see first. I pulled out another document. My withdrawal from the fraud investigation, already signed and dated. What is this? Gregory asked, frowning. My surrender, I said, meeting Mom's surprised gaze. You win, Mother. The investigation ends today. The loans stay in my name. Your reputation stays intact. Madison, no, Kelly said, stepping forward. You can't. I can. And I will, I replied firmly. Then I turned back to Mom. But here's what happens next. You're going to sign over your share of Grandma and Grandpa's trust to me. All of it. And you're going to leave them, and me alone. Mom let out a brittle laugh. Or what? Or these papers go to the police anyway, I said calmly. Maybe not today. Maybe not this week. But someday, when you least expect it. And you'll spend the rest of your life wondering when everything will fall apart. You wouldn't I? I asked, tilting my head. You taught me well, Mother, about leverage, about control, about using people's fears against them. The silence between us was heavy, filled with years of manipulation and pain. Finally, Mom reached into her designer purse, pulled out a pen, and signed the trust transfer with her perfect, real signature. You've become quite calculating, Madison, she said, handing the papers back to me. I learned from the best, I replied. As she walked out, something flickered in her eyes, pride, regret. I couldn't tell anymore. The ceremony starts in 10 minutes, she said quietly. I should check on the guests. After she left, Gregory grabbed my arm. Madison, you can't do this. It's worth it, I said. Your happiness is worth it. But my future is still mine to choose. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Besides, I already accepted the internship. Turns out Las Vegas firms pay pretty well. Kelly hugged me tightly. You're something else, Madison Bailey. Speaking of which, I said, stepping back and straightening Gregory's bow tie. Don't you two have a wedding to get to? As the music began playing and Gregory took his place at the altar, I slipped into a back pew. Mom sat in the front row, her posture perfect, her smile flawless, but she was completely alone. Sometimes winning isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about choosing which battles matter most and finding peace in letting go of the rest. 5 months later, Las Vegas felt more like home than our small town ever had. My apartment was tiny, but the view of the city lights made up for it. I was reviewing case files for an important meeting when my phone buzzed with a FaceTime call from Gregory. Aunt Madison. Kelly's voice came through first, and then the screen showed her holding up a sonogram. Say hello to your future niece. The papers in my lap scattered as I laughed, my heart fuller than it had been in a long time. I sat up straight. A girl? When did you find out? This morning, Kelly said, grinning as Gregory appeared beside her. We wanted you to be the first to know, he added. Have you told Mom and Dad? I asked. His smile faded a little. No. And we're not going to. Not yet. Dad's still in rehab and Mom, well, you know how Mom is. I did. Last I heard, she'd moved into a smaller house across town. She was still attending charity events but wasn't running them anymore. The Queen had lost her crown, though she was clinging to the scraps of her kingdom. Grandma and Grandpa are coming for dinner, Kelly said, steering the conversation to safer ground. They miss you. I miss them too, I admitted, glancing at my packed calendar full of court dates and client meetings. But this case is huge, and nothing, Gregory interrupted. Family dinner next weekend. No excuses. The words family dinner still made my stomach twist a little, even now. But looking at Gregory's steady expression and Kelly's warm smile, I realized it didn't mean what it used to. Okay, I said. Next weekend. After we hung up, I sat for a moment, staring at the unopened letter on my coffee table. It was written on expensive stationery in Mom's perfect handwriting, sent last week. I hadn't had the courage to open it yet. The doorbell rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. When I opened the door, Joyce stood there, looking just as she had months ago in the courthouse. Your mother is contesting the trust transfer, she said bluntly. She can't, I replied. The paperwork is airtight. It's not, Joyce said, her tone sharp. It was filed incorrectly. Deliberately, I suspect. She played us, Madison. She knew there was a loophole. I should have felt furious, betrayed, ready to fight all over again. Instead, I laughed. What's so funny? Joyce asked, narrowing her eyes. All of it, I said, picking up Mom's letter. She never cared about the money. It was always about control, about having one last card to play. So, what do you want to do? Joyce asked. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I broke the seal on the letter and read my mother's words for the first time. Dearest Madison, you've become everything I feared, strong enough to break free, brave enough to choose your own path. Everything I never was. The trust is yours if you still want it. But I hope you've learned what I never could. True worth isn't measured by bank accounts or social status. You won, darling, not because you beat me, but because you chose to walk away.
Mom.
I set the letter down, the words settling over me like a weight and a relief all at once. For the first time, I felt free. I handed the letter to Joyce. File a countermotion. Not to keep the trust, but to split it. Half for Gregory's baby, and half for a scholarship fund for local students. Are you sure? She asked, surprised. After everything she did. I'm sure, I said, looking out at the city lights. I thought about Gregory's daughter, about choices and consequences, and about the difference between revenge and redemption. Some victories aren't about winning or losing, they're about deciding who you want to be. Later that night, I sent 2 texts. The first was to Gregory. Your daughter's trust fund is taken care of. Tell her Aunt Madison says welcome to the family. The second, after a long pause, was to Mom. Thank you for the letter. Coffee next weekend? Sometimes the hardest battles aren't won with lawyers or evidence, but with the decision to break cycles instead of people. And sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, on your own terms with the family you choose along the way.